man? My name is Omar Rodriguez from the Metal Mixtape here in Ashland, Oregon. Dude, how you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing?
Dude, I am doing fantastic because I've been listening to your ass since I was 16 years old, and I'm 32.
There we go.
Yeah. No, dude, I remember back in the day, dude, me and my friends, dude, we'd always put your music in the background, and we'd try to spit freestyle over it. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, Jonny McBee from the Brownie, oh, fuck yeah, dude, let's fucking do this.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Well, hey, man, I want to let you know a little bit about myself. We are a heavy metal FM radio channel out of Ashland, Oregon, dude. We support local music, global music, doesn't matter if it's 100 likes, 1,000 likes. We're here to support you and music.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Hell yeah, dude. So, dude, of course, dude, we're going to talk about your new album, End of Existence, that came out December 3rd of last year. But as a fan like me, and I know a lot of fans around me, I always like starting with my first question. And my first question is called the turning point. So what the turning point is, it's a moment in your life, either your first big show, maybe you got a first big compliment, or maybe somebody handed you a guitar, a mic or a computer to record music. When was that moment in your life where you really took music seriously after this big moment?
There was a couple with me and a couple different levels of it. I guess the very first one, because my family always thought I was going to be like a professional baseball player. So my advice growing up pretty much completely. And I started off on drums. My mom got me a drum set, my brother a guitar for Christmas when I was like a kid. And I just started playing pretty much everything. And then at one point, I was really into DDR, like playing Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh, fuck
and then
yeah.
So listened to a bunch of like Hatebreed and As I Lay Dying. And I just had this moment where I got really into really heavy hardstyle dance music, which is European dance music through DDR. And I realized this is the heaviest dance music. What if I also combine it with like the heaviest metal? And so that was kind of the moment where I realized that I'd thought of something and I started trying to create it. And I thought I was creating it back then. I was really bad, but I was still trying my best. But I was like 14 years old, so. But I just started making this music that was super weird, especially back then, because that was like 2004, 2003.
Yeah.
And I just knew that it was nothing like anyone was making, especially at that time, but still to this day, no one's touched it. And there's something about the music itself that, to me, just gets me really excited. And at the time, none of my friends were really into it. No one was into it besides I was involved in this really small niche community on MySpace called Nintenjoel. And so it was this small little community on MySpace where it was all projects called like Mario Killed Pikachu and stuff like that. But the Browning always had like a very serious edge to it rather than being like themed based around Nintendo games. And so I just I took it seriously, and it made me inevitably, because I was producing all this stuff myself back then whenever I was 14, 15 years old doing Browning music on MySpace. And it made me really want to do music full-time just because I felt like I was creating something completely unique compared to anything else. And so I actually decided to start going to school for music production. I flew down to Florida, started going to a college down there, and there was a Browning fan on MySpace, and it's really small at the time. It wasn't, I hadn't gained any credibility or anything. And a fan of the Browning sent me a message on MySpace and told me that I should try out for As Blood Runs Black because they were doing open auditions. And I didn't really think much of it, but I sent them a vocal audition and somehow got into the band. And so back in 2009, I stopped going to college to go tour with As Blood Runs Black. And that really was the moment where I was like, oh, I could actually do this as like my full-time career rather than just being like working in a studio. It made me realize I wanted to, create my music. And so big shout out to them for giving me a chance being 18 years old. It just didn't work out with them, but I took that initiative and that drive and turned it into me making the Browning a full-time band, because that's the music I've always connected with.
Dude, I got so many questions to bounce off of that, but what I want to ask, dude, is before when they offered you that position, have you been a touring vocalist before that? Have you?
No, I'd only done like Browning stuff on MySpace, so I'd never done a live show on vocals. So
bro, how was that?
Yeah, my very first show ever doing vocals was with Sublett and Black in London, touring with an architect.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so I just kind of got thrown into it out of nowhere, because at the time I was just going to college, writing Browning music for fun, and planned to work in a studio, never planned on being in a band. And then, dude, I didn't even put any effort into the audition I sent to them. I didn't even write lyrics for it. I just made noises. And they hit me back up, and they're like, which I wasn't expecting that at all. They hit me back up and said, "We really like your vocals. Do you think you could write some lyrics?" And so I did that, and they hit me up pretty much immediately. So I took all my stuff down, like my audition down and everything, and then sent them it personally, and then they actually wanted me to do it. And so everyone thought I was like an industry plant, like they knew they were going to have me. They just wanted to do the open auditions for hype or something. But, yeah, so basically within the time of them hitting me up, and 2 months later, they're like, okay, well, we leave for a European tour in 2 months. And so my life completely changed, like, immediately. And it's just I didn't have the best of experience with those guys, but just in the sense of different goals and different mindsets on certain things. But it really did inspire me, and especially that tour, I Wrestle the Bear once was on it. And because I always thought the Browning would be impossible to do live because there's so many electronics and keyboards. I thought I'd have to have like 5 keyboard players on stage.
Yeah.
And on that tour, I Wrestle the Bear once was on it, and they have a bunch of keyboards, and they showed me how they run their backing tracks, and I was like, that's how I can do the Browning. And so it was always in my head, even while I was on the tour and in the studio with Sublett and Black, and I actually showed them Browning music, and they completely trashed me for it. And which is fine. Like, I'm cool with people trashing me for stuff. That's totally fine. And but the whole time in the back of my head, I just knew, I was like, I can actually do the Browning now. And so it was just, it basically showed me I wanted to do that with my life. And yeah, being thrown into being a vocalist, that was definitely not what I expected.
That is so fucking rad, dude. Immediately after your first show, what was the first lesson you learned about being on stage?
The hardest thing was knowing how to, like, talk to the crowd. And I never really paid attention to it before, because at the time, I had been in bands, but I played guitar, played drums. I'd never done vocals in a band, so I never had to talk. And the thing is, being on tour with Despised Icon, Ghost Inside, Oceano, on that tour, I just sat there every single day and watched them and how they interacted and all this kind of stuff. And you can find videos of this tour of me. It's 2009. If you search, like, Sublett and Black 2009, then you'll see a bunch of videos of me on tour with them. And I was a noob big time. But I was 8 years old thrown into it, and that was the hardest thing for me to get used to, was just interacting. My stage presence was fine. Well, okay, it was fine for the time period. Looking back on it, it's pretty shot, but it was, that crowd interaction and the in-between songs, like knowing what to say and not seeming like a dork or anything. And so, but it did kind of, it made me get into the mode very quickly. And one of the prouder moments of that was the Alex, the vocalist of Despised Icon. He came up to me and he said, "Dude, if I was your age, I wouldn't even know how I could do this stuff." And so I was like, okay, so it's not that bad.
That's a big compliment, though. You know.
Yeah, and I was a kid. Thinking back on that time, it's so weird to think that I was doing that crap whenever I was so young. Dude,
that's so freaking rad, dude. You know, a lot of times when I listen to music and, like, different artists, I always think, the all-around pieces are just as important as the music. And, listening to the Browning for years, you've always hit fucking home runs and grand slams with your artwork, with your visuals. Like, you know, I feel like your artwork like does justice to your music. You know what I mean? Like where'd you get that whole concept to create this badass art, dude? Because all your art is just sick.
I I always wanted it to have like a style, and the thing is, I've always been heavily influenced by video games, and so I always kind of wanted something to have that kind of look and that kind of vibe, especially for the sound that the Browning is. With it being so digital sounding, which I want it to be digital sounding in every way possible. I also wanted it to look either retro or like a video game poster or artwork.
Yeah.
Because if it was the Browning's music with like for instance, a artwork with a burning tree on it, it wouldn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have the same aesthetic. It needed to be kind of futuristic. It needed to be kind of sci-fi, and then have like that electronic feel to the artwork as well. And so I've always, I don't do the physical art, but I've always had the direction and the thought of what I wanted to do. And the album arts, if you line them up, there's actually, they coincide together. Like all the artwork runs together in a bit of a story, or at least a theme in this character that's in these different situations. And even so much like the first album, Burn This World, you see this planet that's breaking apart. And the second album, Hypernova, you see this, you're on a street view on top of that planet.
Fucking rad.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to have some sort of theme. And lyrically, I never had like an overarching theme until this newest album. I actually had like it's a themed album.
Dude, so. That's so fucking rad. No, dude, I love everything you're doing, dude. Fucking, I'm gonna hit you with one more question before you talk about your new album because we're running out of time. But dude, so you were telling me at first, you were getting all these comments about the Browning, like nowadays, do you ever read into your comments on your videos? Do you ever like look and just see what people are up to?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things that I think it's good, but also you have to have like this. You have to remember that there are people that are just douchebags. Yeah. And so they're going to look for anything to try to be mean about anything. And also, I know that the Browning, and like I said, even back whenever I showed us Blood on Black Browning music and they completely trashed it, I know that the Browning music is going to be very much not liked by some people, And so that's something I accepted a very long time ago. And so if someone just completely trashes the music and the style and the sound, and I'm just like, it's not for you, and that's fine with me. So it is hard to get over that. I say, like, I won't let it bother me, but, it's, you can say that a million times and it's still going to bother you a little bit. And so, but overall, like, we do get mainly really good comments, and that does make me feel good. And one thing I did with the last two albums is I wrote them live on Twitch, and so I had fans there interacting with me the entire time I was writing it, and so I had that instant gratification of fans telling me something's good or bad, so I could, use it or get rid of it. And so that's something that actually really helped me the last two albums and helped me feel really confident that the music was good, was instead of just waiting for the comment sections after the fact, I actually had people commenting like as I was doing it in that moment.
Dude, that's so rad, dude. I'd be like, it'd be kind of nerve-wracking, but, I mean, you probably know all your equipment so well, dude. You know what? Compared to when you were recording music, like, back in the day, nowadays, like, home studios are, like, revolutionized, dude.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
How are you enjoying this new plug-in era, Kemper era, like, home studio era? Like, yeah. What do you think? What do you like about it?
I'm 100% about it. And, I mean, I've been recording the Browning stuff on ghetto rigs since I was 14, I mean, I've been really making it work for a long time. And the first two albums went to a studio to properly record it, but this one was the first one that I did 100% by myself. And the thing is, if you saw where and how I recorded this stuff, a studio person would freaking lose their mind. Like, But the thing is, with the modern world, you can do almost anything post-production. And so as far as, like, you can record something, and there's so many effects and ways to make it sound good that it's fine. And so where I recorded my vocals, I just, over the course of the last, like, about a year and a half ago, I was building my family a tiny house for us to live in, and I built it all myself, too. And where I made for my office was in a loft, and so I recorded this album sitting on the ground with a metal ceiling that was about 6 inches above my head.
Oh my God.
No foam, no padding, no nothing. I was screaming into my mic, no stand, just straight up sitting down on the ground with a metal ceiling 6 inches above my head.
Fucking badass, dude. That is fucking rad, dude. That's what I'm talking. That's fucking dedication right there, dude. You know?
Yeah, just doing it.
I'll tell you what, just a quick side story, you know, one of my biggest interviews I ever had that got published, I did it on the toilet at work on my lunch. So
Hey, dude, it's all good. You got to make it work with what you have. And the thing is, if you're putting passion into it, it's people are going to enjoy it, you know?
For sure, dude. So, dude, End of Existence, I listened to it all the way through playing League of Legends last night, like twice, and it's fucking sick. I love all your albums, dude, but to the fans out there in Ashland, Oregon, and around the world, like after doing all these albums, like, where do you pull your influences to create this album and do something that you haven't done before? And if you did something different this album, what exactly do you do?
So I try to do the thing where I don't listen to anything whenever I'm trying to write an album. Just because I honestly, I don't know if this sounds, you know, douchey or not, but I use, like, the Brownings music as my biggest influence. And to be honest, the Browning is my favorite band. And so it's the music itself and the style is so unique that it alone inspires me to create it. And every time I create an album, right whenever I'm done, I'm like, there's so much more I can do still, and I'm always still excited to write more. And but I will say, it's hard to not get influenced by this if you listen to it or you play the game. But the Doom soundtrack for the game Doom, it's written by a guy named Mick Gordon. It's the heaviest game soundtrack possible and has a very specific sound. But he doesn't tour with it. It's not a band. It's just a soundtrack for a video game. And if anything influenced me outside of the Browning itself, it's the Doom soundtrack, 100%. Super heavy. It's way over-processed, which personally I love. And if there's any bands that can pull off the sound that he does in the Doom soundtrack, it's the Browning. And so that was one of my thoughts, was taking the influence from Doom and the tones he created. And that's his production style, too. I listened to seminars from Mick Gordon on how he created the sounds, because he creates such unique tones.
Okay.
I started dialing in and hand-making, like, my synth sound for this record. Instead of using presets, I was doing a bunch of really unique, creative ways to create, like, these atmospheres, which I'd never done before. And just doing a lot more stuff in a different, like, thought process, specifically from watching Mick Gordon videos and listening to the Doom soundtrack.
Yeah, that is sick, dude. So, dude, I have so many favorite songs on this album. I think my favorite song is Anti-Ascendancy.
Yep.
It's probably my favorite song. And my second, I don't want to butcher this name, but you probably know what name I'm talking about. It's a Got Is Taught.
You did it. Good job.
I did it? Holy shit, dude. No, sometimes I interview bands from, like, Germany and stuff, and I'm like, dude, I can't pronounce this, and I'll go home and do homework. But, dude, I love your songs on this album. For fans out there listening that maybe haven't heard the Browning, if there was a song on this album you would recommend, what song would it be?
It probably would be Anti-Ascendancy. I think that song really, it pushes it in a lot of ways. A lot of the heavier parts on that song are really old school Browning, but then the tonality and just the creative structure in it is very mature and, like, newer style Browning. And I also really love stepping outside of the realm of just what I can do. And so the past two albums, I've also had a female singer on some songs.
Yeah.
And Anti-Ascendancy has that, and I just think it creates a different emotional vibe than anything else. And one thing I love to create, not only with the lyrics or the singing itself, but is like an emotional overtone and undertone to the music. And that song has just that tonality to it. It's very emotional. And another thing I wanted to do with this album is I didn't want to follow any sort of industry standards for anything. So I didn't use any standard presets people use. I also didn't use any standard like song structures because I really get annoyed in the modern world where these extreme metal bands are supposedly extreme metal bands, but they're using like rock song structures. So it made the deathcore or metalcore scene very predictable. And so I don't use any standard song structures on this record. And Anti-Ascendancy has a very, very unique but flows really well structure. And the electronics are super catchy. The vocals are catchy. You said that one's your favorite. That one's probably my favorite off the album as well. And if you want to hear like the heavy, heavy stuff off this record, then the title track, End of Existence, that song just slams.
Dude, fuck yeah, dude. Well, Jonny, thank you so much for being on the Metal Mixtape today. I'm going to hit you with 3 quick questions. We're going to try to answer this in less than 1 minute. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. In a zombie apocalypse, if you could have any weapon to destroy the zombie horde that isn't the cure or the nuke, what is that one weapon?
A spear.
A spear? I love it. If you could perform on stage with any band in any era, dead or alive, for one set, who would it be?
Rammstein.
I fucking love it. All right, dude. If you could choose your death, but it had to be by a villain in a horror movie or anime, who would you choose to kill you?
A Titan from Attack on Titan.
Dude, I fucking love it, dude. And last but not least, Jonny, can you say this is Jonny McBee from The Browning, and you're listening to the Metal Mixtape?
This is Jonny McBee from The Browning, and you're listening to the Metal Mixtape.
Dude, thank you so much, brother. You have a beautiful day with your family, with your music, and have a great week.
You too, dude. Peace.
Peace.